Alright everyone, it isn't often that I refer to VOX. I've actually started following several dozen legacy media networks on YouTube and elsewhere, primarily in order to shitpost on everything that they post. The Young Turks, by the way, literally blocking me. I'm muted on their normal comments. I can do it in the live chat, but they've muted me and they've banned literally hundreds of clankers after we invaded their chat several times. It's the funniest shit in the world. Come the midterms, I can't wait to clank on their live stream. It's gonna be so great. Now I'm getting like giddy just thinking about it because the writing's on the wall as far as Jank not politically getting his way that particular night. But VOX, surprisingly, finally admitting to at least a part of the aspect of the schismatic nature of the Democratic Party. Now keep in mind, I've been saying this for years. The Democrats have a problem. A deep, really bad structural problem, and it keeps hampering them, and they don't have self-awareness enough to correct it. You have a neoliberal core of the party, and then you have two smaller poles. They oppose each other roughly. You have the business Democrats. They're sort of a dying breed in the hyper-political climate. Joe Manchin is the most notable member of this particular group. You've got essentially a partially socially conservative, fiscally centrist Democrat, because he's from West Virginia, so he's doing his job. He's representing a constituency that's technically Republicans. So he acts like one sometimes, and he shrouds it in bipartisanship, but really he's doing the job as people want him to do. This runs him up against even the neoliberals. Then you have another, it's smaller, I think, even than the business Dems, but it's growing in size, and certainly younger and more tech literate, and that's the squad, the Geek Squad, the Gang of Four with AOC, or Bernie Sanders. Then you have the half-assed progressive caucus, like the Elizabeth Warrens, that try to be the missing link between the left and the neolibs in order to play both sides to get elected. Didn't work for Warren very well since she came in a distant third in her own fucking state's primaries in Massachusetts, but supposedly she's still some sort of great leader within the party, and at least she's not demented, so she shines by comparison to some of these fuckers. The problem is this, and we're seeing this link in the description archived, of course, on Israel and Palestine. This is the only part that VOX actually admits to. It goes far deeper, but the idea is, if you look at the neoliberals, like Biden and so forth, they're unabashedly pro-Israel, mainly because they've set up a sort of cultural zeitgeist, a paradigm that if you don't support Israel wholeheartedly, there's something wrong with you and you're probably a bigot. At the very least, you're a secret anti-Semite, if not an outright fucking Nazi. But you have leftists that don't believe that. They look at the situation as Palestinians are, I guess, darker in their estimation, so they default to them. Also, you see Islamic apologism among the far left. Ilhan Omar is literally an Islamo-fascist. You have a zealotry, basically. It's funny because liberals tended to avoid that even like a decade ago, because they'd look at the Islamic world at large and they'd say, well, women's rights aren't there, workers' rights aren't there, religious liberties are not there. Basically, you've got zealotry. And by the way, and this is no joke, next time that a person on the left tells you far-right crime is more prevalent than far-left crime, mention to them that if you look at the ADL SPLC style statistics, typically Islamic attacks are lumped in with the far-right because it's a religion. Typically religious attacks are simply grouped in with far-right ideology, even if there's no political ideology behind them. Well, yeah, that tends to shift the aggregate quite a bit because that's the majority of terrorism. It's religious in nature. Throughout the entire world, it's terrorism and drugs. You eliminate those two things, 90% of the violent crime in a lot of parts of the world fucking disappears. Eliminate cities and the rest of it disappears. Rural people, supposedly a bunch of gun-toting bumpkins that want to kill each other. Yet, when given the opportunity and the firepower, they typically don't kill each other. Kill a rabbit and then they skin it and eat it. Kind of grisly, but I bet it's tasty. By the way, lamb chop's amazing. VOX is admitting to the schism in the Democrats between those that support Israel, like Biden and stuff, and those that support Palestine. They admit to it. My question is, why is it that no person in the liberal or left-wing media is capable of taking that and looking at it in any other context? Economically, there's a schism. Biden's not doing half of the things that he campaigned on. Guns! Remember when Biden was campaigning? And, of course, in the primaries, candidate Biden, especially before he was crowned the champion of the Democratic Party, said, we're going to get AR-15s off the streets. These assault weapons are terrible. We're going to ban them. What was one of the first goddamn things he did when he actually took office? Well, Yeah, well, we're going to tackle the gun violence problem. We're going to apply a tax to that kind of weapon, which, by the way, is not going to get it past Manchin anyways. No the filibuster's there. You're not going to get past the Republicans. You might be able to get a Liz Cheney or something to vote for something like that, or a Mitt Romney, but the votes certainly in the Senate certainly are not there. It's not going to happen. But initially, he did a 180. He said he's going to ban the weapons, and then he said, well, no, basically I'm just going to keep poor people from legally owning them because I'm going to tax every magazine and I'm going to tax the weapon. Which, by the way, is nonsensical. You can 3D print magazines for basically any firearm now. Gun control's dying because it's unenforceable. 3D printing and so-called ghost guns and the fact that there are so many weapons out there and no chance of them getting rid of straw purchasing means that gun control effectively is nullified from sea to shining sea. It effectively doesn't exist in the U.S. A lot of police forces won't even fucking enforce the gun control that's on the books because they don't want to get shot at and because they realize it's unenforceable. If 3D, disclaimer, I'm not telling you should do this or that it's legal, but if you 3D print a bunch of so-called high-capacity magazines, how are they going to prove that it wasn't in the state to begin with? None of these states seem to have grandfathered in their bans. Like in Vermont. Some dude got arrested because he bought like 30-round magazines in New Hampshire. The problem is that if they couldn't establish that they were bought in some other state, I think they caught him specifically because he bought a gun at the same time. So the background check is associated with the purchase. Whoops. How they fucking gonna figure that out? If they've been 3D printed, oh yeah, but they were 3D printed pre-ban. Well, prove that they weren't. See, the state doesn't even really prosecute people for that. In Maryland, they have the same kind of ban, and it's not enforced. This is the schism of the Democratic Party, because if you look at some Democrats, they want to crack down, lots of new taxes. Bernie Sanders talking about the wealth tax, and then you have someone like Manchin, or even Biden in some cases, completely holding out. And so the problem for the Democratic Party is there's no unity. Meanwhile, the legacy media, including VOX by and large, say there's a problem in the Republican Party because they booted Liz Cheney. But you know why they held a closed-door vote? Because it was probably unanimous. Because it was probably unanimous. And they just don't, they know that they have to work with Liz Cheney for a little while longer till the people of Wyoming kick her out, and they don't want any problems with her. Because they don't want to have to fucking deal with it because now she's making the talk show circuit. That's the reason why. There's no schism in the Republican Party. It's the party of Trump. The Lincoln Project is correct. It's the party of the 2000s and the 2020s now, instead of the party of the 19th century. Yeah, it's not the party of Lincoln. Lincoln died a long time ago. This isn't the antebellum period. There's no Homestead Act. The Gilded Age is over. The cotton gin, really, really great. You know, the cotton gin now is completely automated. Robots are a cotton gin. Yeah, the Republicans have modernized. And this is not without growing pains. But the schism of the Republicans was being healed in the middle of the last decade, essentially. Trump very quickly kicked out all the never-Trumpers. They're gone. Nobody likes Mitt Romney. He's booed by his own party. Nobody likes Liz Cheney. She got ousted probably unanimously in a closed-door vote. The neocons are going away. By the way, thank goodness. Meanwhile, you still got neoliberals controlling the Democrats. And they don't play well with the far left. This is only one of the major examples that you can give of the schismatic nature of the Democratic Party. That's about all. Peace out.